Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm Rudy McLennan coming to you from Glasgow, Scotland. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. The United States has said that the largest hospital in Gaza, al-Shifa, and tunnels underneath it are being used by Hamas militants as a base for military operations and as a place to hold hostages. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby made this statement during a news conference on board Air Force One, aligning with what the Israeli military had been stating for some time. Additionally, the US Department of Defense acknowledged having information indicating that Hamas is holding captives and disguising military operations in Gaza by utilizing hospitals more broadly. Meanwhile, the US and the UK launched new sanctions on Hamas to halt financial support following the organization's deadly attack on Israel last month. On Tuesday, the US enacted a third set of sanctions directed against key Hamas figures, as well as the channels through which Iran supplies assistance to both Hamas and another terror group, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. The UK Foreign Office released a statement announcing that the UK had imposed additional restrictions on 2 financiers and 4 top Hamas figures, including the organisation's political head in Gaza and the head of its armed wing. Archbishop Timothy Broglio, the president of the US Bishops' Conference, is calling on Israel to engage in negotiations in its conflict with Hamas. Decrying the civilian casualties that have occurred since the beginning of the war, the Archbishop demanded that Israel find a way to negotiate. During a press conference at the Bishops' annual Fall Assembly in Baltimore, the prelate stated that the crimes against Israelis had sparked a reaction. However, he emphasised that the response to those actions should not pose a life-threatening risk to civilians. The prelate, who heads the Archdiocese for the Military Services, further suggested that Israel, with its superior military force, should take the initiative in negotiations. He argued that delaying negotiations until Hamas releases hostages could harm innocent lives. The number of anti-Semitic occurrences in America rose by 316% compared to the same period the previous year. That's according to preliminary statistics analysed by the Anti-Defamation League in the month following Hamas's terrorist assault on Israel. The group's Centre on Extremism in the United States recorded 832 incidents of anti-Semitic events, vandalism and harassment between October the 7th and November the 7th. Of these, 632 were cases of harassment, 170 were acts of vandalism and 30 were acts of violence, with over 100 incidents occurring on college campuses. Archbishop Paul Coakley of Oklahoma City has been elected as the Secretary of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. During their annual fall plenary assembly in Baltimore, the US bishops voted for the Secretary and the Chairman for the 6 standing committees. Coakley received 187 votes from the US bishops and was also elected as the chairman of the Committee on Priorities and Plans. Archbishop Coakley currently holds the position of Conference Secretary. Last year, he was selected to complete the term left vacant by Archbishop Timothy Broglio of the US Archdiocese for the Military Services. Free speech advocates are celebrating the Helsinki Court of Appeal's decision to dismiss all charges of hate speech and ethnic agitation against Finnish lawmaker Päivi Räsänen. The Finnish lawmaker was charged in 2021 for publicly expressing her biblical and religious views on marriage as being between one man and one woman back in 2019. Furthermore, the Court of Appeals also dropped the charges against Finnish Lutheran Bishop Juhana Pohjola. He had faced accusations of inciting hatred for publishing a pamphlet written by Räsänen in 2004 that promoted a biblical perspective on sexuality and marriage. 2 proposals on assisted suicide presented at the American Medical Association's interim meeting were declined by the combined efforts of members from the Catholic Medical Association and the Christian Medical and Dental Associations. The meeting, which ran from November the 10th to the 14th, involved resolutions on assisted suicide aimed at changing the organisation's stance from opposed to neutral. The Catholic group's board member, Dr. Timothy Broglio, said that the nationwide involvement of CMA members was critical to the outcome. He asserted that the group would be continuing its interventions as long as assaults on ethical medical care persist. At least 44 people lost their lives in separate attacks in the conflict-ridden eastern part of the Congo by rebels affiliated with the Allied Democratic Forces and linked to the Islamic State. On Sunday night, the insurgents targeted the Kishanga hamlet in North Kivu province, resulting in the deaths of 33 civilians. On Tuesday, they killed 11 more villagers in Ituri province. The army eliminated 6 of the militants. Recently, there has been a surge in deadly assaults as authorities and security forces strive to regain control and deploy sufficient personnel in regions where women and children are particularly vulnerable. A quarter of Somalia's population is facing a severe hunger crisis due to climate change-induced floods and droughts. That's according to a statement made by the World Food Programme on Tuesday. Recent floods in Somalia and neighbouring countries have resulted in mass evacuations and people displacement. The floods have damaged infrastructure, including roads, houses and critical facilities, affecting access to essential goods and services. Shortages of food, fuel and other necessary items have created an urgent need for humanitarian assistance. The March for Life Education and Defence Fund has announced "With Every Woman, for Every Child" as the theme for the January 19, 2024 March for Life rally. Jean Mancini, who is the president of the March for Life, along with 3 other pro-life speakers, addressed an event at the Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C. They discussed strategies to better support pregnant women, mothers and children. Mancini emphasised that pro-life advocates stand with pregnant women and their families, not only throughout pregnancy, but also afterwards. Archbishop Joseph Li Shan of Beijing, the president of China's state-controlled Chinese Catholic Patriotic Association, commenced his 5-day visit to Hong Kong on the 13th of November. Marking the first official visit by a Beijing bishop, the Archbishop and his delegation are visiting the Diocese of Hong Kong at the invitation of the city's Pope Francis-appointed bishop, Cardinal Stephen Chow Sao-Yan. According to the Diocese of Hong Kong's website, the visit aims to encourage communication and exchanges between the 2 dioceses. This visit follows Cardinal Chow's trip to the Chinese capital in April. Following a welcome, the church leaders celebrated Vespers in the chapel of the Diocesan Curia. In the Cardinal's office, the Beijing Archbishop gifted Cardinal Chow a stained glass portrait of Jesuit missionary Matteo Ricci, and the Cardinal gave Archbishop Li a white wooden panel depicting Saints Peter and Paul. On the second day, after the celebration of Holy Mass in the Curia Chapel, the team from Beijing visited the Diocesan Centre and the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception. Barcelona's iconic Sagrada Familia Basilica marked a momentous occasion on the 12th of November, as the towers dedicated to the 4 evangelists, Saints Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, were blessed and illuminated. The significant event unfolded following Holy Mass, where the Apostolic Nuncio to Spain and Andorra, Bernardito Auza, presided as the main celebrant. The Holy Mass drew the participation of nearly 2,000 attendees, with the Nuncio delivering a heartfelt homily, conveying warm greetings from Pope Francis. The inauguration of these towers adds another chapter to the rich history and architectural splendour of the Sagrada Familia, a symbol of Barcelona's cultural and religious heritage. In a remarkable display of remorse, the individuals who had desecrated and stolen items from a chapel in the Diocese of Orihuela Alicante in Spain have now sacramentally confessed and returned the missing objects. The desecration took place on November the 5th at the Sacred Chapel at Quirón Hospital in Torrevieja in Alicante. Diocesan Bishop José Ignacio Munilla announced this latest development, expressing deep gratitude for the transformative power of prayer that ultimately led to this remarkable outcome. The prelate stated that in respecting the sacramental seal, the Church will maintain confidentiality regarding the identities of those who committed the act. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us again tomorrow for more, and do remember you could always visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.